There is always that point in any build when you have to take that monumental next step. You have literally scaled the rock face of the project so far, and now you just have to take that big leap of faith and plunge straight into it and hope that everything turns out for the best. Well, after this next few weeks, there will be no house left, so there literally is no turning back. Did I mention that I'm afraid of heights? I think it's time to make a splash.
So, go.
After pulling together to buy and renovate this little old beach shack, my family and I have just 12 months in total to get this old house demolished and our new home built, before we run out of time and budget. So with the clock now ticking, and without any spare time to waste, we roll our sleeves up and get started on the demolition.
Oh, look at that!
With a hammer and a crowbar in hand, and some gentle persuasion, the old shack begins to crumble. Then it was time to bring out the big guns. With the plasterboard proving to be a formidable opponent for some, there is no doubt this volley of front kicks left it weak. The future contest would now be in our favour. As much as this looks like smash and bash, there is a hidden process that sits within the demolition itself. It's more like a deconstruction in truth, or a mirror opposite of the build. After removing the architraves, the plasterboard and the cladding is pried off, which unlocks the insulation and the carpets.
Oh, look at that! Look at that! That is cool.
And it was underneath this carpet that laid a secret gem, being an old polished hardwood floor in surprisingly good condition. Although removing this carpet and the insulation is one of the dirtiest and itchiest jobs of them all.
Should be wearing a mask. I think we should.
Over half a century, the level of ingrained dust and fibre gathered in them is palpable, which, once disturbed, quickly becomes airborne. With the air full of particles, disposable coveralls and a mask would have been a wise move here, although we weren't afforded the luxury of prior knowledge. As we push on, the roofing screws are painstakingly removed one by one, allowing the steel sheets to then be peeled off. And with the added help of Tim, the ceiling was soon exposed, and a few gentle taps were usually enough to set it free.
Well, I think another couple of days and the bin will be full outside, and then I'll be taking down the asbestos. So cheers to that. Glad when this is all over. Cheers.
Pick up the front, love. Get the front corner.
Reinforcements soon arrive, being my older brother Nick, who flies down from Sydney to help us. It's short work stacking this 20 cubic metre bin, which will be the first of many big, expensive rubbish bins needed throughout the project. Then comes possibly the most dangerous part of the project, the asbestos removal, which we did ourselves too. Understanding the risks here, the difference between friable versus non-friable asbestos, The removal laws, plus the heavy-duty safety precautions needed, all together made this job slightly less horrible than it already was. After a week of demolition, the only things left now to remind you of our old shack are just a few remaining relics. We press on, and the reciprocating saw is brought out to glide through the window casements. And to save rubbish dump fees for us and landfill for the environment, these windows would be later given away on a trading website. Plus we got that nice feeling you get knowing our trash is someone's treasure.
Yep. Hold on.
With the house now back to its bare frame, it was time to mark out the floor heights and the dimensions of the new home, which the excavator will work to when he soon arrives.
Okay, I'll run one down the other side of the house.
Plus, we'll check for any irregularities in the floor due to possible structural movement that may need to be rectified and levelled out later on.
1158. 1158. Alright, let's check a few
After a
spots.
quick lesson in the level, we measure the existing floor heights. And with only a 10mm difference across the entire foundation, the footings, bearers and joists are in excellent condition and get a clean bill of health to be reused in the new home.
That's not bad, you know, like we can fine tune that once all the floor joists get ripped up, if we need to tune it up, but might just be able to straighten it a bit and just fade it out.
We push on with the demolition, and with a hardwood frame as tough as steel, it takes a sledgehammer and brute force to bring it down. The best of the pieces are to be made into bench tops for the new home, with the rest of the pieces chopped into firewood for the cold Melbourne winter to come. Then lastly, the flooring, which is pried up and sorted, with the best of the pieces to be recycled into timber features for the new bathrooms. And with that complete, the old shack is gone forever. With the finished floor level set by our carpenter, another excavation of the land is needed. But first, there is the slight nuisance of around 10 tonnes of concrete getting in the way. These concrete slabs won't go to waste though, because they'll be taken off to a recycling yard to be crushed down and turned into road base. After the rubble is removed, our excavator has a chance to do the site cut, which importantly scrapes and removes the poor quality topsoil that is full of weeds, roots and other waste, letting us get down to the fresh natural ground. That will be the very best foundation for our concrete slab. This excavation will also help to set the finished floor height for the new building. With most of the old shack incapable of being kept due to the presence of dangerous asbestos, termite damage or aged into disrepair, with our best efforts we reuse what we can from the old hardwood frame and floor to pay respect to its history. Although this same emphasis on ensuring our architectural past lives on hasn't always been valued by the politicians and developers in the City of Melbourne, because sadly, to make way for new developments during the mid to late 1900s, many of its magnificent old buildings were demolished and are now just ghosts of the past. To understand these old buildings, you would have to look back to their construction and the era when they were created. After its founding in 1836, Melbourne's population of 177 people soon grew to 123,000 with the boom of the Victorian Gold Rush, just 20 years later. With this newfound fame from prospectors flocking from around the globe to come here, the landscape was a bustling tent city of people seeking fortunes made from gold. Melbourne quickly became one of the wealthiest cities in the world, and it invested a lot of its newfound wealth back into the city's skyline. Yet, without the comforts of modern day construction techniques, development at the time took on a much slower pace. Many of the buildings were made from the typical construction technique of stone, with the most prized being a beautiful white sandstone quarried from the Grampians. Just a 200-kilometre drive from the Melbourne CBD, Heatherley Quarry at the time was a state-of-the-art operation and housed up to 100 workers who, using explosives, cranes and a rail system, would mine and cart the stone to Melbourne. Buildings like the Victorian State Parliament, the Town Hall and the GPO are all made from Heatherley Quarry sandstone, and they still stand as proud today as they did at the time of their creation. Enter the roaring 1900s, and magnificent Melbourne was soon a beacon of wealth and prosperity. These old buildings would now play host to the people and machines of their time. And together, this city would be a symbol of success and sophistication to the world. Although fate cast a very different outcome for many old buildings in Melbourne, like the fish and produce markets, which used to be a hive of market activity in its day, but were shamefully destroyed to build a car park for the 1956 Olympics. The Federal Coffee Palace, which was Australia's largest and grandest hotel in the late 1800s, was also demolished, this time to make way for what is now just another bland office block, admired by no one. This same story is also true for hundreds of other grand old buildings that have all been erased from the landscape in favour of remarkably bland modern developments. Today, these surviving old buildings are the soul of the thriving metropolis that is Melbourne, and they should be protected long into the generations to come, hopefully to serve as an incredible reminder of this city's pride and place in history.
So we'll do the other lines now.
We'll start on these
Yep.
ones now. Do you want to start on that side or?
I think we'll do that side first.
With the site cut complete, Andreas and Gideon from Land Dimensions are back. This time to mark out the all-important footprint of the home.
Today we're doing some work for the builder. We're actually setting out some building lines for him. Now, some builders do it themselves, but obviously if you get a surveyor to do it, it's a lot more accurate.
And it's this accuracy which not only removes the headache for our carpenters, but also crucially ensures our boundary walls don't creep into our neighbour's yard, for what would be a catastrophic mistake.
We've actually inputted that floor plan into a CAD program, and which is uploaded into the survey equipment, which we've got on site here. And basically that survey instrument will now spit out all the points for the building. So we can accurately pinpoint any position of that building on the ground today.
And this is because laser-guided and precision software is removing any possible human error.
9mm.
This data is translated into positions on the ground using timber stakes with nails that, when connected by a string line, will be the exact outline of the home and its walls.
We've also marked out some other lines. We've marked out the back of the building over there. We've marked out some lines along the side for the bedrooms. For the cinema room, we've also put a line in it around the corner there. Walk-in robes. So yeah, we've basically marked out all the building lines. So once the builder ties his string lines, you'll have all his right angles all set for him.
1mm, sweet.
And making it easy for the carpenters doesn't go unnoticed either.
Your survey saved us a fair bit of time by marking out some walls, so it's taken all the thinking out of it for us. It's good. We've got an external porch down there. You want to just transfer that down?
Like any building project, each stage of the build causes a domino effect for the next trade.
Basically, you know, we'll just do everything and then double check it and double check it. You know, we'll take a measurement out one way, cross check it back the other way, make sure all the figures add up to the right measurement. So everything's added up, everything's to within probably 3 mil.
In this case, GPS precision from our surveyors at Land Dimensions is met with millimetre accuracy from our carpenters to give us perfectly mapped string lines for the next stage, being the plumbing and the concreting. If these string lines for the building were incorrectly mapped out, then the opposite would also be true.
So that'll be step down 2. Oh look, you know, at this stage of the job, you want to get the concrete right. If you don't get the concrete right, it's pretty hard to rectify.
And by hard to rectify being building terminology for a jackhammer smashing up parts of the slab, taking the time now to get the mark out of the walls correct to avoid costly mistakes is imperative.
That down there is the step down.
Especially when this floor will be later honed and polished into a marble-like finish, using world-class technology.
Check twice, cut once, they say. So we've double checked everything. And it's all shaping up really well so far.
With the morning's work complete for our carpenters, the new home is now built on the land, albeit with just a few string lines and some imagination. It's now just a process of filling in the blanks over the coming months.
And then the concreters are locked in for Monday, is that right? So it's looking good, you know, everything goes to plan, the weather's good. We should be laughing. Be nice to get a slab down before the Christmas break.
Getting this slab down before the Christmas break will be our top priority, which will help us to keep our build on time and on track to avoid costly delays. Picking up from where the carpenters left off and before the concreters come in next week, our drainage plumbing that sits underneath the slab is now ready to be laid.
We've strung up all the walls for all your bathrooms and laundries and stuff like that. Marked out all our drain with the blue lines and white lines, and just excavating now.
Translating the carpenter's string line into a painted map sprayed onto the soil is the guide our excavator cites to dig our pipe trenches. As the layman, you'd naturally assume it's a pretty straightforward process of digging and gluing some pipes. But like a lot of the building game, there is a surprising amount of precision and science involved.
Well, what we've got to make sure is you don't have anything running in lines with the footings. Footings are 700mm deep, so we've taken care, got the engineering out, made sure all the drains are outside the footings. Angle of repose, we've got to keep an eye on. So that's why we've come in branches like this, branch into your footings. Nothing runs in line with the footings. You can cross them, you can't go along them.
Understanding our engineering plans and the specific footing structure is just one consideration our plumbers have to keep in mind. Understanding the maths of local government laws plus the laws of gravity will also guide how they install this drainage. So then literally by the time we start from here all the way back to the connection up there, we're going to be about 400 or something?
Well, we calculated we need 300mm of fall from outside a slab to the other end. So
which basically using gravity to get it into the
That's
pit.
right, yep. So nothing sits in your drains, yeah.
So before the concreter comes here, is there anything else we need to double check, or are we kind of good to go?
Once the concreter's done all his boxing and sets it all up, we come back and set up all our waste for the showers and double check everything again, make sure the concreter hasn't pushed anything out of plumb, damaged anything. And so once you get your plastic in, your mesh, termite, then we come back, double check everything for the third time.
So what looks simple enough, in truth, is more like a plastic piping work of art.
Set out all the fixtures, as you can see here in the ground. We're just about to check over them now, make sure they're in the right location. We'll go over it together. Yeah, so we've just tried to clean up as much as we can. Concreters will come in and make a mess as well, but generally just all pre-slab works for plumbing is being completed now.
With the plumbing now in place and underground, it was the perfect time for the first ever walk through the new home. Well, almost. Mum couldn't quite take me seriously.
Come here. She's camera shy. Let's hug you into submission.
Oh.
You good? Well, as you can see here, the home is officially demolished and it was a hard-fought battle. Well, 4 weeks later, about 4 tonnes of general rubbish, 110 square metres of asbestos, about 10 tonnes of concrete, 2 truckloads of dirt and about 5 trailer loads later, and we're done. The pre-slab plumbing is in, the home's been marked out and our concreter is ready to take over. And I'm off to have a very long hot bath. See you next week.
Next week, our concreters are in, but things don't quite go to plan as an almighty storm threatens to cause serious delays to our construction.